More shiny bits back from chrome plating. Bit of a jackdaw when it comes to this stuff. Get very excited seeing new stuff coming back. So what have we got this time? Some bits I've made and some bits I've just had plated. So we'll start off with that one. So this is the gear sticks around. So you would have the leather gaiter comes up through here, and then your gear stick will be up here. So this lovely bit of trim here. Again, it's all hand formed in brass as ever. But this was really mangled up. I had to do a lot of straightening on this before we could send it away. But they've done a lovely job on it. You know, got a real deep shine on it. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. That's going to look really good. You know, once that's sat there, it's just going to look beautiful. So yeah, pleased with that. That's a little piece I had to make. It's just a closing panel. Goes to the top of the door, where it goes up to the door frame. Again, one of those silly little things that was missing. You know, like a lot of this stuff that was missing on this silver car. And then these are really for other projects. So these are a couple of spark plug lead holders. 12 spark plug leads, as these are twin spark. You know, 6-cylinder but twin spark. So they have the they need to be kept under control, the plug leads. Anyway, so a couple of them, I had them done, made them look pretty. And then these things, these little monocles, actually supports for the radiator bottom hose. Now, one of these is original, and then there's 2 replicas I made. You know, can you tell which one is the you know, is the replica? You know, it's you know, especially if I mix them up a bit. Eh? Anyway, truth be told, I can't tell. I can't remember now which was the original. I suspect it's this one with more weld on it than these two, because you know, I made 2. Actually, I made 3, but one of them didn't. One of them just got powder coated because the customer for that one didn't want it chrome plated. Oh, they should be in chrome. But anyway, that's by the by. I reckon it's them 2 because they look almost identical, whereas this one's got a heavier bit of weld on it. So I reckon that's the Maserati one, and those are my 2. So what they go with is they go with these little rubber grommets. I say little rubber grommets, they're not. They're big grommets, aren't they? So the idea is that ends up in there, and then the hose goes through it. So you know, that sort of thing. That's like that. That go in there, so you don't really see a lot of it. But and then that as the bottom hose goes through there, bottom radiator hose. So I think they're going to be good. Again, past the factory, which is the whole thing we're trying to do all the time, isn't it? So that's them bits, but what we're on today is finishing that A-post. If you watch the last film, we did most of it, and now we got to do the sort of finishing off. And as I said, you know, the last 10%, well, 90% of the effort, isn't it? Especially when I bugged it up last week by cutting it too short. So yeah, so I don't know if you remember, it was this, and then I chopped it too short and the wrong angle, so it's kind of comes out more like this. So we're gonna see if we can't solder a bit on there and repair it and make good on that. I mean, I was quite happy until I did that, but there you go. It was one of them rushing things, and I sort of worked out what I did. It's because I was looking at one side to the other side, and I got myself confused because one of these is quite damaged. And I kept saying, you've got to make them to the car. And of course, then I cut it to the one we had rather than to the car. And even though I allowed extra, it still was wrong. But anyway, we'll look at that later. So I've got a bit to do here. We've got to sort of sort this out where it's not sitting properly. You know, and up here. So we're probably going to have to shrink that a bit to try and pull that in round a bit. And also, since last week, I marked it across there straight and cut it. But you can see it doesn't quite follow this line, so I've tried marking that with the dividers to show how it actually curls round, how it should do. Now I'm not going to cut it straight to that. I'm going to use this edge to shrink it. So I'm using the material we're going to cut off to shrink and try and get a bit of better shape in this, and then we'll have another look at where to cut it, because that might alter it, as we looked at before, when you move them around, sometimes it changes where the line is. So we'll work that out. But that's what we're on. So let's have a go at it. What we've got, as I said, is this. It's sort of a bit baggy here. It's not holding on. It's followed round nicely, but not here. So we've got to pull that round a bit more. And it's not a case of just bending it over. We've got to make it curl round more. So I'm going to have to shrink that edge a bit, and then probably dress it over a bit, I think. You know, this was the shape we was trying to put in with the English wheel. And of course, you know, because we didn't really know what we were going to end up with, we were sort of guessing. We were just putting shape into it to give us something, you know, because then we had to do that fold on it, and then we had to do this, pull it round into this shape, into this profile, didn't we? So, you know, we don't really know what we had to put into there at that point. But that's what we've got to do. We've got to deal with that, and then deal with this bit down the bottom, try and add a bit on. But let's get it the right shape first. I'd already cut it in here. And as I said, I've done one bit down there, but yeah, I think that's it. So it's really, we're trying to get that to you know, it's got to sit with a sort of a degree of spring tension on here. I mean, you don't want the wind getting under it either, but you know, so yeah, so we're trying to, yeah, that bit. So to get it unclamped, and I put one screw in it. So we've got one screw in it up the top here. So let's get it all unclamped off of here. So this is clamped onto the A post because this is obviously how it wants to sit, like that. And I haven't drilled the other holes yet because we're still working on it. Things move around quite a bit when you're working on them. So we don't know where we want, you know, all those screw holes to be, as it were. So that's that. Let's get that in there. Right, turn that off so we don't waste the battery. Let's have a look around here what we've got. So, get a better picture of it on the bench here, what we're dealing with. Got a couple of little sort of pulls in there where we have tried to use the shrinker, which will need to be, you know, straightened out a little bit with a hammer and dolly or whatever. And so that's what we're replicating, is that one, that shape. As I said, well, this one's been cut down, so that needs to be repaired another time. And of course, what I was doing, I was using this one to give them back to back, wasn't I, last week, to give us our shape to see what we're at. And I did that, and then I'd cut them sort of appropriate to that. I'd cut them, you know, thinking it's all like that. But obviously, really, what I was really dealing with was this one, because it's for this side. And what you'll see is when you add these two together, you can see how much longer this one is, where it ends there. I know it's short here, but look at that, between there. So we go from here, and look all the way along to here, it's completely different. Now, I haven't trialled both of these on the car, but that's what happened. I was using that one as our datum, and allowing a bit extra, but nothing like enough. So that's how that happened. So yeah, it's why you've got to look and spend a lot of time on familiarising yourself with the job before you rush in. And of course, because we were filming, I was doing it a bit quicker than I perhaps would have done. And anyway, there we are. And we're running out of time because we had to get home. So, okay, so yeah, so we wanted to get that sorted out where it was a bit baggy, didn't we? What I really ought to do is mark it on the car where it is actually baggy, otherwise we'll be mucking around with it, not knowing where we are. Now, of course, I should have done that before I unclamped it all, but we can sort of offer it up and get a feel for it. So it's through here, it's through this area here, so it's sort of roughly through that area that we got there. So I guess if we just give ourselves that, that'll give us an idea of where we're working on. So it's that area. So I'm going to use the shrinker first, but fairly gently, and then we'll decide how to try and finish it a bit. But if I use the shrinker just on the very edge, because we're probably going to cut a lot of that off, you know, it doesn't matter if it leaves some marks in it really. Now this brass is quite malleable, a bit like aluminium really, stiffer than aluminium, but nothing like steel, so you have to, you know, do it appropriately. But also we've got to be a bit aware of putting dings and dents in it, because we you know, this can't be, can't have a bit of filler put in it and a bit of high build primer. You know, this has got to be polished, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. You know, they'll build it up. It'll be triple plated, so they'll build it up with copper plating first, which is quite heavy. Then that get lynched and polished and so on. And then what they'll then do is they'll then polish it, get a really nice mirror finish on the copper, then it'll have the chrome over the top of it. Now the reason they do triple plating is that the chrome bit, the actual finish bit, is actually porous. And that's why you see cheap chrome plating that isn't triple plated. So you buy a brand new bit of reproduction chrome for your Mini or your Morris Minor or whatever it is, or MGB, all these cars that they do loads of, Fiat 500, all that stuff. And you put it on, looks shiny, you open it up, you know, it's like Christmas Day, all very exciting, you know. Jackdaw in you again, gets all excited. You put it on there, and the first hint of any damp, and you get all rust bubbles coming up through it, little rust pimples, you know, little round rust spots. And they will polish off, but that's why it's doing it, because it's not triple plated, it's just been flash plated quickly. And that's what you get. Whereas if you look at really old chrome plating on particularly English cars, on their bumpers, on steel bumpers, and you'll see that sometimes it's green, you know, the little round marks on it have turned green. Well, obviously that's the copper in it, the green. So, and you can polish that off with a bit of fine grade steel wool and a bit of suitable metal polish, and it'll come up a treat. And you don't really see those marks then. You just get the shine of the chrome, and that takes it all up. So that's why I go for triple plating, but also it gives you a bit of something to work with. You know, they're building it up with it, and obviously if they need to linish it up and get it, you know, just right. Well, linishing means they're sanding it and removing metal. So, you know, obviously it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. So they've got to have something fairly good to start with. They can build some of it up with lead, and they do sometimes, but they don't want something too bad. You know, they're really going to say, look, you know, take it away and make a better one. They're not going to say, oh, we'll fix that for you. You know, why should they? So yeah. So anyway, so we put it through, shrunk that a bit. Let's just try it back on the car quickly. See if that's starting to work, and then we will try dressing it out with a hammer and dolly. So yeah, we've sort of taken that out. A lot better. I think I'm going to take a bit up here. Now I'm going to put a bit through here. So we're all right there. I think we'll have a bit on there, and just from there. So we're going to take it all the way up that edge a bit and see what we got. But I think, you know, that's pulled it in, just doing that. Now the reason that's working is because we've already got this curve in it. So obviously shrinking it a bit more is adding to that curve. It's allowing that curve to sort of build. You know, if you just shrank it and it was too straight, it wouldn't do that. Or yeah, shrink it. Anyway, let's do a bit more. Try and get this edge. You're just on the very edge, because I say we might be cutting some of this off, so it doesn't matter too much if it's marked it a bit. But we're being pretty gentle with it. We don't want to be too harsh with it, because we don't want to, you know, put too many mark. Well, it's going to mark it, but you know what I mean. We'll try and be fairly gentle, not go over the top with it. Right, that feels better already. So yeah, I think we're gaining that. We're getting that sort of shape into it. You can see it sort of feels like that. Let's just try it on the car again. Then we'll have a little go at moving it around. I think with a hammer and dolly or something. We'll use a something on it anyway. Yeah, so still got a bit in there, but obviously we're not clamped down, so. I don't think that's too bad. I think that's all right. We can tighten that up a little. We don't want to tighten it too much, because then it tends to sit off this edge. But yeah, I think we want a bit more on there, and then I think we'll start trying to bring it over with the hammer and dolly a bit, trying to, you know, move it more in that direction. So I'm just going to bias, as I'm doing that, I'm going to bias it down a bit in there to try and give us a bit more shape. But you can see it's sort of pulled these crinkles into it. See, it's got these high spots. If that can see, if you can see that, move it up and down, you might see there's some high spots. Certainly there, there, and there. Anyway, and these are what we're going to dress out in a minute. So again, try it on the car again. I know this is laborious, but that's what it takes. You know, you'll be holding things up against stuff quite a few times. You don't just make it off the car and say, "Oh, that'll fit." You have to do this quite a bit, or you need something to work to. You know, some sort of jig. But you know, the car's the jig in this case, isn't it? So a bit more through here, a little bit through there, through that area. So it's there above. There and above I'm going to do. So let's make sure we've got the right bit. This might be better with those Eccles jaws in the other one, but to be honest, I don't want to keep walking around next door, although actually I could do. Well, I'll say, now I've got a doorway, I could walk through there and use the other one, but anyway, don't want you having to follow me, do I? Otherwise, it'll just, yeah, it'll wear you out. I wonder how many steps I do a day. Probably a few less now I go through there rather than out and in again, but anyway, there you go. It'll be all right. It's still enough steps, I'm sure, to keep me healthy. Yeah, so I think that's not too bad. That's not too bad, but yeah, so we've got these little lumps in it. So yeah, let's have a look. Okay. Yeah. Right, so we want to dress that around with something that's of roughly the right sort of shape, follows the contour. So something like that, or we could try this one, which is quite nice, but we'd have to try and hold on to that somehow. I'm not sure how we're going to ever hold that still enough. I suppose what we could do is we could hold this still. Perhaps that's what we'll do. Perhaps we'll clamp this, and then we can hold the hammer and dolly that way. Let's do that. Or should we try and use this? Right, well, we're going to have to want to start with something like this up this end, because we've got a this is tight here, isn't it? So I want to just take that down from there a bit, allow that to move down onto it. I mean, we can linish some of these out, but obviously we don't want to make it too thin. So we'll try and take what we can out with this as we go. Now you've got to be careful to keep this flat and not put divots in it like that, because we'll put little half moons in it otherwise. Right, and try and keep the surfaces of your tools nice and polished and clean. That way you're not transferring any marks from either of these onto your work. So otherwise, you'll get all the marks, all those little marks and divots in your hammer, and end up in your actual work, which is lovely if you want to do that. If that's what you're trying to do, get some effect, but not for what we're trying to do. We want it all smooth and nice. So yeah, we don't want to end up like that. So. You're running your hand along it lengthways like that, you can feel if it's going up and down, you know, any undulations. Which you've got a bit of a high spot there. You can sort of see it's low there and then it's high there, so that's a bit better. Right, let's try that on the car again. See, so that's got rid of some of those. There's still a little bit there, but it's got rid of a lot of it. But you can start to get little marks with a hammer in it. Starting to put little marks in it, which is what I said we've got to be careful of. But I'm not going to fret too much about that because we can linish some of that out, you know. Don't want to linish it all out, but we can linish a bit of it out. Remember, this is only 1mm, so we've got 1mm of material to deal with here. So we don't want to take too much of it off. Otherwise it really will end up too you know, no good. That's not looking too bad. Bit up there. That might be because we're not clamped on properly. Okay, well I think we need to clamp that on, put that screw back in and see what we got. But we're sort of getting to that, but we're getting some crinkles in it and I've put some hammer marks in it. As I said, it's really rather soft and you can end up with little divots in it. So I'm going to have to work this lot out and linish it up a bit. But I'm not, you know, that will come out. I'll work that out, like I've said before. Last 10%, 90% of the effort, and probably another, you know, 95% now. I've put some dins in it, but anyway, there you go. We need to get the shape into it. So I think what I need to do is put more shape in with the wheel when I'm making this and bring it more across the edge. I think I ended up not taking it through to the edge. This might be why I think they make them in two parts at the factory and solder them along this edge. But I wanted to try it this way because I got success last time. Let's not worry too much about that. Let's work out about cutting it out down. So what we've got to do is look at this side. So if you come around here, we've got to look at this straight through here, this profile. So as I say, that's a straight edge. I'll put a straight edge on there and back mark that and mark it off. But you can see it's wider here and here rather than it is in the middle. So I think we'll mark it off with some dividers, and I think we'll cut that. So I think that's what we're going to try and do, because on the other cars it does seem to follow that line. So we'll put a straight edge on it just to have a look. I'll go over here and grab a ruler. And, you know, as we say, you sort of keep looking at things a few times before you cut them and see. So if we sort of put that in there, go to there, yeah, we can see that's not straight anyway. You can see from there, so it's not a straight edge anyway. So that is touching there, it's touching up here, and it's wide there. You know, you can sort of bend it around to sort of follow that curvature, and it starts to close that up a bit. But yeah, so it's obviously not a straight line. It's obviously not a straight line across there. So trying to make that a straight line isn't really relevant. So we'll take it off of here. Optical illusion, you know, it will look straight when it's not. But that will upset things if we don't get that marked out right. So let's do that. We'll cut that back, mark that off, cut that back, and see what we've got. So we use some dividers. I think if I use straight ones, they're going to be at the wrong sort of angle. You know, we're going to be tipping up a hill. So let's have a look. So these ones I use for back marking might be better for this. So I think that's probably the right thing, is to use these. So we're about even there and there. So it's sort of up here that we got the thing. So I reckon if we're careful, we should be able to pull these down through here and get a nice mark to work to. Yeah, I mean, that's what we were looking at before, wasn't it, when I was saying we were shrinking on the edge? It's sort of where the mark was anyway. So that's, you know, that's what it is. So I think we'll cut that back and let's see what we got. Let's have a bit of light on it. So yeah, so you know, I reckon we'll cut it back to that and see how that fits, and then we'll know about that. We then got to do this mucking around down here, and we've got this return around the bottom here to do, but I won't worry about that in a minute. Let's try and get this sitting right, then we'll see if we can't repair this bit. Purely to see if it can be. I mean, you know, let's not scrap it yet. Let's try and resurrect it. Right. Okay. So as I say, you'll be fitting these things time and again, trying to put things on and taking them off again and so on. It's just part of the course, particularly when it's this sort of one-off bespoke stuff. You know, if we was making a few of these, it'd be different, you know. You'd maybe make some tooling up or a little buck to, you know, a little sort of former to make it on. But for what we're doing, you know, we've just got to keep trial fitting them onto the car. And that's the way we're going to have to do it. So we've got to snip this off down here, take that off. And again, you know, this is the thing, you know, you'll cut these things down a few times till you get them to quite where you want them. And that's the way you want to do it. You don't want to go in too fast, you know. Yeah, it's better to cut it off a bit at a time gradually until you get to what you need. You know, if we cut too much off too soon, we'll end up with the same problem we got here, having to let a bit in. And you never want to have to let a piece in along that edge. It would just be a right pain. I mean, that would be scrap it time. And as I said, you know, this one's been cut down, hasn't it, for some reason. So exactly what we've got to do is we've got to, you know, you wouldn't want to try and join a bit on there. What I'll do is I'll make a new piece for this. So as I say, I'm sure that this is soldered on there. And when we get the chrome taken off that, because what I'll do is I'll take the platers and they'll take the actual chrome off it, then we can see what we're dealing with, and then I'll probably, as I say, make a piece for that. So I think that's the way they made them, in two parts. And they probably had a former to put this over to get these to the shape they wanted, and then hold them down whilst they solder them. And then I think the shrinker marks that we do see on them, certainly there's some shrinker marks in here, is just the fine tuning of getting it to fit each individual car. That's my thoughts anyway on this. Because in here we can see these are definitely, I recognise these as Eckhold shrinker marks on here. So I think they had two blanks and then they just finished them off a bit. I think that's the way it was done. You know, they just tweaked them a bit in the last bit. But anyway, right, and bear in mind they'd have to make them quick. You know, because it's a productionised car. You know, although it's coach built and handmade, they had to do it quick enough. You know, they you know, couldn't spend all day making one of them. Right, so let's see if we can cut this down a bit. So we need to get in on here somewhere, which is always difficult to start when you're not on the edge of a piece of metal. But we'll get in. We'll just get a little nip in there. We'll straighten that out with a file when we want to. Need keen eyes for this. See where the line is. And what you've always got to remember with this sort of stuff, so, you know, say I don't get this right, say I decide, oh, well, you know, that's gone wrong and I'm not happy with that and I'm going to start again, you know, it's not all lost, it's all practice, it's all learning how to do things. You know, I know it's not very good if it's for a customer because you know, you sort of think, oh, I can't charge him for the practice, but you know, sometimes that's what's part of it. You know, it's not about, you know, making one perfectly straight away. Sometimes you have to do a couple to get it right. You know, and it's part of the thing. And you're improving your skill sets every time you make something, even if it goes wrong. You know, you doing it a couple of times. You know, it does mean you got something. So I'll grab a file and just straighten that out. But yeah, so quite a bit come off that. I'll just grab a file from next door. So that's the joy of my new doorway. So I can just zip round there like that. So yeah, so we'll just try straighten this out a bit. Right, I'm going to need a little bit more on that, but that will do for the minute. You see, it does sort of sit flat on here, which is interesting when we sort of, I think that's because it, you know, how it bows round. So again, with this one, I was trying that earlier, and that has a habit of sort of sitting down like that as well. You know, you can sort of sit them on there like that. So, you know, although that's actually not a straight line, due to the curvature, how the curvature changes, it does end up straight, if you see what I mean. Which doesn't make a lot of sense when I say it, but I know what I mean, and you'll understand when you start making things that this is what it happens. So I'm a little bit off that line there. Right. Let's give that a go and see what that looks like. So yeah, that's looking a lot better, a lot more, you know, it sort of sits right, doesn't it? A bit wobbly through here. I'm going to have to try and straighten that out a bit nicer there. That's not quite right there. But, you know, we're getting it. It sits nice on here. It pulls round nicely. And the gap, I think, looks about right. But as I say, it's not straight here. Something's gone wrong there. Yeah, I mean, I can see there. I can see the edge. I've missed the edge slightly there, so I'll have to file that up. I won't do that now because you don't want to be there watching me filing things, do we, for ages? So yeah, what we've got to do is let a new piece in the bottom here. So we're going to see if we can find a way of resurrecting that, salvaging this. I think we need to put a piece behind it and let a bit in there. We'll see. As I say, measure twice, cut once. I don't know what I did there. I don't know what. Well, I did. I showed you, didn't I, earlier in this? Yeah. Well, we did how that happened. And that's exactly where you go wrong when you're rushing about and doing things. You know. Yes. Well, repent at leisure, isn't it? These things. Right. Okay. Now I've had a clean up of the nozzle because I realised when I looked at the footage it was all splaying out where it was all dirty and not it wasn't giving a nice frame. It was giving those sort of three prongs out to it. Must have had something stuck in it. But anyway, I've done that and I made a nice little stand for it to, you know, little stand to hold it on when I'm not using it. So let's get the two flammable stuff out of the way. And we'll try and get this sorted. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of solder on this just to hold it on there for a bit, and then we'll have to work away and take those clamps off. But let's see what we can do. I mean, this is a bit of a trial, this. So I don't know quite what we're going to get. Oh, we've got a nice bit on there, so that'll help. Right. Let's leave that one on. Take that one off. So what I've done is I've put a bit behind it there, piece behind it, and then we've got the bit we're trying to join there, like that. You see, so I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. We'll probably go through and hold the one on the back. And then we'll see whether it'll, I think that's what's going to happen here. And then with that, we might linish that away, or a lot of it away. I've certainly got to linish it away on the edge. And then it will just, you know, we should have a fairly seamless joint. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of linishing going on here. And it might be that this shows through that there's a joint on it. But I think we'll probably be all right. If all go fails, I'll make a new one. So let's see how we get on. Okay, right. Right, and that's where my stand comes in, so I can put that there. Whilst I try and support this in a different way. Right, let's right, a bit more flux on it, on this end piece here, and we'll see what we can get. See if we can't just get this sorted out. If we can get that joined along there, then I think we'll have a good chance of repairing this. I really doesn't look too bad. Right, okay. So I'll have to run the compressor up, and then we'll have a go at linishing that up. I think we'll linish that up with the little sander linisher. So here we've got this piece behind it, and of course the solder will have come through from the top onto this. So that's just a support really. We might, as I say, linish a lot of that away. I'm not too worried about that. It's really that we wanted to get this joined here, which seems to have taken all right. I think we'll be okay with that. I think we'll. I do think we'll probably get away with this, but you know, we'll have to see. So. We've got a large gap through here, which we're going to have to fill, but I'm going to see how we get on with that. I'm not too worried about that at the minute. I was more worried about trying to get this on seamless, because obviously this has got to be carved away and end up seamless across there. So that's what we're trying to achieve. And all this is just trying to put right where I cut it too short, so there you go. Pain not to cut it too short in the first place, wouldn't it? Right, okay, I'll run the compressor up and we'll have a look and see what we can do. Right, let's see if we can linish this down a little and see if we can smarten it up a bit. So yeah, I'm happier with that. We're still going to have to cut it down a bit through here. You know, this is still because it's interfering with that bodywork there, but we got the right look. You know, so using these has been invaluable. That's what's enabled us to do that. So what I thought was quite interesting was when I picked that up. You know, this old literature of these brochures. What you'd do is you'd go into the Maserati agent, or sometimes they'd send them to you in the post, you know, if they thought you were sort of the sort of person that would be buying one. And this is what you'd get. So you'd have this one, and this has the whole model range of the time. So we've got a quadruport, Series 2, because it's got twin headlights. And we can see here it's got Maserati, and then 4-port, which is 4 doors, so quadruport. Whereas these were called 2-port. So although it's called the Mistral, originally, and with some of the literature, it's called 2-port. But anyway, so 2-door. So yeah, that's the model range at the time. So you had the Mistrals here, then you got the Series 2 quadruport, world's fastest saloon car in the day. That was a right bit of kit, you know. World's richest man had one. Anyway, whatever. They were pretty something. We've got Sebring, that's a Series 2 because it's got the headlight trims on it. And then we've got what would be an early Mexico, and then the Ghibli. And both of these are V8 cars. So is that one. And these were the 6 cylinders. So these were the run-outs of the 6-cylinder. Then Maserati went over to the V8s, and that was it. They dropped the 6-cylinder in line. So yeah, that's that. Just a list of them there, and so on. So that's that bit. And yeah, we've got these lovely shots of them. Yeah, beautiful things these are. I like having stuff like this. And this one's quite fun. This one, what we got here? For your attention, there we go. Attention. So there we are. So I was saying about this one being gold, wasn't I? So there we are. That would have been it in gold. That would have been it. So there we got a spider there in gold, which sort of, you can see it sort of more does it justice than the brochure. So yeah, that would have been quite something. So yeah, we've got Maserati Mistral Spider convertible. Don't know why they had to call it convertible twice, because spider means convertible, but there we are. Perhaps they wanted to make sure you could work it out. But yeah, there we are. I think that's wonderful, isn't it? And she likes it. You can tell she's a fan. You're ready to pounce out there and drive off in it. But yeah, that's a bit of fun, I think. Probably can't get a good picture of it. It's all, all creased up and so on. But yeah, it's I love all this sort of 60s publicity stuff. It's great fun, isn't it? I think this was in a newspaper or something back in the day. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was a giveaway. Go on your bedroom wall, wouldn't it? You can imagine. There we are. When you was a kid, when I grow up, I'm gonna have a Maserati Mistral. So yeah, it was in Quattro Route, which was the car magazine of the time. And there we are. It's got 1966 on it, so dates it to this. So it would be exactly that hue, wouldn't it, on it? Because this is a 66. So there we are. Just a bit of fun. And I'm cold enough now that I think it's time to go home. We'll finish that. I'll finish that off in the week, and I reckon we'll be all right with that. I think it's a bit more work, but I think we'll be all right with that. And then we'll get some photos of that to next week and back it up. But I reckon that's it. So time to sign off. I think. Good night. Until next week.